All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Life Behind the Badge podcast. I'm Travis Adams, and I'm back with Brandon Lovett. And today we're going to have Chief Deputy Danny Wilson on the show.
Been looking forward to this for a long time. Danny's a good buddy of ours, co-worker, leader in our department. We've really been looking forward to getting him on. He's an interesting fella. He's done a lot, seen a lot, been a lot of places. So we look forward to bringing this to you. We know it's been a little bit of a delay in our episodes dropping, but things happen. We all got kids. It's t-ball time and basketball time, and so our time's a little shorter than it was before, but we're back. So.
Yeah, we're in full swing right now. Basketball, baseball, soccer's getting ready to start. But anyways, without further ado, we'll get started. Before we get going, we'd like to thank the Sullivan Construction Group and Jason Hanley at Alpha Pet Boarding and the On Point K9 Academy. We appreciate your support and helping us getting this thing up off the ground and going. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to introduce Chief Deputy Danny Wilson, and we'll just let him start, give a little bit of background about him, and we'll roll into some other topics.
Yeah, hey, appreciate you guys having me on. Just to hit on your sponsors, Jason has done an excellent job helping the sheriff's office and what he's done for us as far as K9.
Yeah, he's been a huge supporter in everything we do.
Yeah, he's an asset for sure.
Good asset for us. He cares about the department, the community, and putting a good product out there with our dogs. And
Right.
I can honestly say since I've been here, this is the third dog that we've had, and he's trained, and they've all been good dogs. So,
Well, tell us a little bit. I don't know if you want to start, out of high school, what you did, and I know Danny. He's a local guy. Went to school here, graduated from here, but we'll kind of start from there and where life took you after high school.
Yeah. So, I was just like most people from around here. Just you grow up rural community, you farm, you work, and that's just kind of the way of life.
Right.
And so right out of high school, I went to work for a couple different places, but September 11th happened. I was working in a factory. Chase, my only son, he was pretty young at the time, and I just decided that I wanted to do something different. And, I wanted to do something I felt like was going to make a difference, some sort of purpose. And so I decided to join the Marine Corps just a little bit right after 9/11. I think I enlisted maybe the 1st of November and ended up going to boot camp January of 2002. And then that's kind of where my life began, really.
Right. Probably grew up pretty quick then. Had to start growing up a little bit in a way.
Well, I did. That was different. I had, like most people, never been out of Scottsville. Not much further than
Barron River.
Yeah, Barron River. So that was the first time I'd ever been on an airplane. I mean, that was a first for me. I had to leave my son, my young son, at home, my wife, my family. But I knew it was just something that I needed to do for me, because I knew even though it was something I needed for me, it would benefit them in the long run as well. And so off I went. I'm not going to be one of those guys that say, oh, I just breezed through and everything was great. Like, no, it was rough on me at first. I'd not been away from home and had a young son at home, and I knew I was going to war at some point. That's why I joined. I went into Marine Corps Infantry, which kind of fit the bill a little bit. For most guys like us, you are athletes, and I was too. That just felt like more home for me, being in that team, because if you know anything about Marine Corps Infantry, if you can run, if you can shoot, and you can hike, you're going to be a pretty good Marine in infantry, So that appealed to me. And just the fact of wanting to be out there, out front of things and making things happen. That first year, I was going to say that first year I was in was different. It was just a big culture shock, a big change. Glad I did it. I adjusted to it. but definitely probably one of the best decisions that I'd ever made. So early on in my, my Marine Corps career.
Well, before you get too far into it, we'll jump ahead. I'm gonna stop you, but I'm a big on the training stuff, and I just like to hear people talk about it. But I wish you, if you want to, just hit a little bit on your experience, in the boot camp part of the basic training.
I mean, that was really more stress induced than anything. It was, let's break you down from who you are and build you back up. Like they don't care where you come from. They don't care who your family is. They don't care if you're, if you were an Olympic athlete, or you were just that normal guy that come out of Scottsville, Kentucky. You're all broke down to be the same, and then they build you back up. And the physical aspect of it, I tell everybody, wasn't as bad as more like the mental aspect of it. It's to break you down and build you up to be a Marine and the way that they need you to be. So for me, I needed that. I needed that structure. I needed that redesign, I guess. That discipline, the things that you don't normally get, just every day.
Right.
So the training in boot camp and that aspect of it, probably was more beneficial to me than anything. It really did change me because it gave me those things that I didn't have, those intangible traits, the things that you can't touch, the things that you can't get your hands on,
Right.
And, I think everybody needs that in some way, form, or fashion. Law enforcement kind of works that way as well. You get those things in law enforcement.
And it really instills that base, that discipline that you need from day-to-day life.
And for me, my question to you is, and I know you'll get to some of this later, and you don't have to go too far into it if you don't want to, but would you say that boot camp and your time there, would you say that translated well into what you've seen later on in your military career once you were deployed, or would you say that it really wasn't? Was it good on a personal level to kind of set the tone for you, or was it just completely 180 from what?
Well, it was good for me because it really put me in check. It allowed me to see who I was, where I needed to be, and how I could get there. And, I wasn't the top recruit. I wasn't that guy. So, I needed to see how the world really was, and to be thrown into something different, that adversity, have to go through that, whether you liked it or not, and be able to function and to grow as a person. I mean, I'm still young, like most people. I wasn't as young as some of those guys, 17, 18 years old, but I was still a young guy that needed that direction and that guidance. And so, yeah, I would say later on down the line, as my career progressed, sure, some of those things that maybe I lacked in when I came to boot camp that helped me, later on.
Right.
Because I got better at it.
Right. Yeah. Makes
And it's
sense.
because I failed so many times.
Yeah. Story of my life.
Yeah, I failed a lot. The physical aspect of it, like I said, wasn't that bad, but it wasn't easy either.
Right.
It was doable, right? It just hurt,
Yeah.
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 And it's this old saying, that you used to have. You see some of the old Marine Corps T-shirts around. You'll see is that pain is weakness leaving the body. That was kind of a slogan, a saying, and it's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah.
And you need to go through that.
Yeah.
You need to go through some pain. It needs to hurt, and that's what you grow from. That's how
I
you get
agree.
stronger. So yeah, that helped. And then moving forward, as you go on, it gets harder. You think that's the hardest part, but it's not. It gets harder.
Right.
The physical, the mental aspect of it, and you're just constantly conditioning yourself physically and mentally.
Right.
And when it comes to training, to hit on training. So you get the base. You get the baseline.
Yeah. So so we don't get too far off track. So you originated Scottsville, of course. You ended up joining the Marine Corps. What happened next? Like, as far as your path goes to lead you here today?
So from there, I went through my follow-up training, which was a school of infantry.
Real easy.
Yeah. No, not really. You're still what we consider a boot, which is a young Marine. And So you still ain't got it figured out yet. You know what I mean? You get school of infantry, yeah, you're a Marine now. You know, you've earned the title, but you're still a boot, man. Right. So you don't know nothing yet. So they're going to teach you, for the most part, your basic infantry skills. You know, your shooting, your moving, your communication. You know, shoot, move, communicate. That's really kind of what it's based around. And then you have different areas as an infantry guy that you can, different routes you can go. You can be a machine gunner, you can be a mortarman, you can be an assaultman, which shoots a small rocket, or you can be a rifleman, door kicker. You know, I was a rifleman. So from there, after a few weeks in it, then you kind of break up into what your actual MOS is going to be as far as what you're going to do. So the riflemen go over here, and the machine gunners go over there. You know, the assaultmen go over here. And you just kind of hone those skills a little bit. And then from there, you get selected to go to a unit. I went to 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, which was a really, really good unit. A lot of rich history there. One of the most decorated battalions in the Marine Corps. So I felt pretty fortunate to be a part of that unit. Got there, and man, I realized I hadn't seen nothing yet, you know. I remember the first PT session. I wake up that morning at 05, and, you know, we don't PT in shorts and shoes. You know, it's what we call boots and utes. It's pants and boots, and, you know, and you take off. And you don't know how far you're running. You know where you're running to. You're just running, you know, because you're still a boot.
Yeah. Do you feel like when you, throughout your career, when you started in the Marine Corps, it sounds like every time, you know, you go to boot camp, you go to School of Infantry, and then you get to your battalion, do you feel like there was a different standard like the standard keeps changing and going up, and the expectation, you know, there for you all to reach that, it's just a common, just kind of the culture around that, you know, things get harder and you rise to the occasion.
Well, that's a different job, and I think it has to be that way. And the reason being, you got to think in that time frame, Afghanistan had just kicked off, and in 2001. So we're not even a full year into that yet.
Right.
And, you know, this is 2002. And, you know, I'm still a young Marine. I'm still trying to figure things out, you know. Really, truthfully, how to be a Marine. You know, like boot camp teaches you the baseline of it. School of Infantry teaches you a little bit about infantry. And they do a good job. You know, they do a good job. But when you get there, you're still learning how to be a Marine, right? You're still learning what's expected of you, what the standard is. And there's a very, very high emphasis on, you know, efficiency and being really good at what you do. You know, the Marine Corps didn't get its name and its reputation because you had a bunch of guys that wasn't good at what they done. Right. So there's a rich history there. And at the same time, like, there's a standard to uphold. So, you know, when you looked at the physical aspect of it, like I said, you know, a minute ago, you know, I felt like I was in pretty good shape till I got there.
Yeah.
You know?
Then you met some guys in really good shape.
Yeah, and then I met some dudes that were Marines, you know, and it's like, okay, you know, I got a little ways to go here. And so from there, you know, you PT every day. And when you're not PTing, you're out in the field, you're training, you're shooting, you're hiking, you're working out, you're running. That's your job. Yeah. You know, and I tell everybody, you know, good, bad, ugly, it doesn't matter. It's the most unique job in the world. And, you know, because your only job every day that you wake up is to be stronger, faster, be able to learn to shoot better, move better. You know, your job is to go to war. Right. And some people don't like that. You know, it can be morbid, but at the same time, that's what you're there for. Right. Yeah. You know, you're not there to learn how to work on an airplane. You're not there to learn how to work on a truck. You know, you need those guys. Right. You need them, right? Right. But as an infantry guy, man, you just got to be in shape.
Did you realize the importance of that, you know, before you actually put boots on the ground? And
no.
Like, when did that sink in? Like that, you know, the training and what you did. Sorry, there we go. We're good. Thank you. So you talk about, you know, just being a better Marine, your day-to-day to work, and what the expectation was there. When did that sink in for you? Like, that you realized, was it when you were right in the middle of war, or, you know, boots on the ground, or is it, you know, years down the road? And
real quick before we touch on that, go back a little bit. So it's 2001. You quit your job. You quit the job at the warehouse. You joined the Marine Corps. At what point did you deploy?
Uh,
To Iraq.
So I landed in, my unit in '02, mid '02. I came home for Christmas in December, and I was at the airport actually with Christy and Chase. I was about to fly back, and a roommate called me. And he said, "Hey," "where you at?" I said, "I'm at the airport." Yeah. He said, "We're going to war." I said, "Yeah, man, there's a war going on."
Yeah.
He said, "No, we're going to Iraq." I'm like, "What?" Like the whole time you're thinking like you're going to go to Afghanistan,
Right.
Like Iraq hadn't spun up yet.
Right.
Right.
I was like, okay. So I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to Iraq, He's like, yeah, we're having a formation in the morning, to basically tell us what's going on. So we get back, and I get back later on in the evening, and nobody knows really what's going on until the next morning. And they're like, yeah, get ready to go. We're going to Iraq. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
What's going on over there?
Just like that.
Yeah. And they're like, yeah, I expect to be down range in 3 weeks. I'm like, well, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
Just got home.
That's
Yeah.
quick.
But I mean, luckily, in that time frame, I'd had some training evolutions and things like that, and had to grow up some as a Marine, and get better as a Marine, because, like I said, I was still in that transition phase.
Right.
Probably wasn't where I needed to be, and I was a young Marine, and so I ain't gonna say it was scary, but like I questioned, myself a little bit.
Yeah. I think anybody would.
Am I ready for this?
Yeah.
And
I for sure would have.
but you're there.
Yeah.
So, and that's where you wanted to be. So here you go.
You with the guy, it's got to help. I know, just in not trying to compare it, but like doing this job, everything's a lot easier when we're together. I know when it's probably a little bit of more heartache when you're by yourself thinking about I'm getting on this airplane and go meet up with my buddies and we're just gonna go over to Iraq and hang out,
Yeah.
And then I'm sure just the camaraderie and the just the culture around being around guys, that's got to help a little.
Well, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things too, as far as this job and that job, man. It's a team.
Yeah.
And it really has to be a team. And if it's not a team, man, you're just not going to function very well. And you got to share that same common goal.
Right.
And we all had the same common goal, and so that aspect of it, you're going with your guys, man. You're going with your dudes, and these are guys you've been living with, training with. Doing everything together for the last few months. Your family time is not a lot.
Right.
You're going to spend more time with those guys than you're going to spend with your family.
Right.
And so you get to know everybody pretty well. And then, so we launch. I think February, like 2nd or 3rd, we land in Kuwait, and still don't know what's going on, man. I mean, you're at the bottom of the totem pole.
So you started boot camp when?
April.
April of 2000.
No, January of 2002. Graduated April,
And then
I was in maybe August, September, or something like that. That's when I got to my unit.
Yeah.
And started training, and so.
And then 6 months or so you're in Kuwait.
Yeah, so we started doing a spin up when I first got there. And I'll back up a little bit. We started doing a spin up. So a lot of people don't know what that is. So the Marine Corps has these things. It's called MUs, Marine Expeditionary Units, and you have an element of it that's SOC. So you got Marine Expeditionary Unit, Special Operations Capable. So when you start looking at a training package, your training package is most of the time to spin up for that MU. And what that is you're out on the water and you're on ships and you're just basically that force and readiness, That's kind of where they get the name America's 911 Force. You can launch from those ships and do whatever you need to do. That's what happened in Afghanistan. They launch MUs and things like that to get on boots on the ground over there. So we're thinking we're doing spin up for something like that. And but then Iraq pops off. So they flew us over, and we hit the ground in Kuwait, and still didn't know what was going on. And
Real quick, what did you think when the first time that airplane, helicopter, whatever you came in on, when the gate dropped, when the door opened, you walked out? What was your first thought? Do you remember?
Well, it was a commercial plane, so we got off the plane in Kuwait at the airport, and they threw us in these little vans and made us shut the curtains and
Buzz you through.
buzzed us out to where we were going to go and dropped us off in the middle of the desert.
Well, let me back up there. What was your first thought when you got to the middle of the desert?
Well, when I got to the middle of the desert, wasn't nothing there, you know. And we're just looking around like, where we at, you know.
Yeah.
And you're just out in the middle of the desert. And so we stayed there kind of overnight. And I remember they kicked us out a few clicks from where they dropped us off at. And we just dug in, you know, and dug in a big defense. And I don't know how far we were from the Iraqi border. But we kind of just dug in a defense and did a blocking position out there. And we lived in fighting holes out there in the middle of the desert for a couple weeks, a few weeks actually. And because this was February. And so we stayed out there. We lived out there basically off of whatever we could put in a rucksack is what we lived off of out there for a couple weeks. And then they're like, all right, we're gonna go back. And we're like, where are we going back to, you know? We're going back to this little camp. Like, there wasn't a camp when we got there. There was
Nothing.
We go back, and there's tents everywhere. And we're like, man, where did this come from? We in the right place, you know? And we took a wrong turn to Albuquerque somewhere, you know? But we get there, and they're like, they had a little, you know, tent set up for us to stay in and stuff like that. And we just been living out in the desert, you know, for two or 3 weeks, something like that. You know, no showers, no phones. You don't have that stuff.
Right.
You're eating MREs. So it kind of felt like war, but it wasn't war.
Right.
You know, I've never been there, but I'm just thinking like, okay, this.
Not what you pictured.
Yeah, this is kind of legit, you know. And, you know, the president gave the go. And they pushed us up to this, what we call this ASP, stands for Ammo Supply Point. And I think that's when it hit most of us, and when you get your combat load. When they load you down with ammo, okay, like something's fixing to happen.
Right.
When I'm walking around with hand grenades, like, you know,
Yeah.
that ain't something you just
No,
normally
that ain't
walk
right.
around
Yeah,
with.
that's not
So when
normal.
I got hand grenades and 400, 500, 5.56 rounds, and you know, guys are packing rockets and stuff, it's like, all right, it's go time. You know, something's gonna go down. And so probably one of the, in my opinion, one of the greatest Marine commanders ever, General Mattis, was actually our commander at the time, General Mad Dog Mattis. So that was, you know, looking back on it now, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, all the people that come to know who General Mattis was.
Right.
Because I was part of the first MEF, so the first Marine Expeditionary Force. And so we get loaded up, man. We get a big op order, and they're like, all right, you know, time to go. Man, here we go. We had first tanks out in front of us, and we were rolling in AAVs. We crossed the border into Iraq, and of course, first tanks is out there doing their thing, man. You know, paving the way for us. And it was the race to Baghdad. You know, if you ever go back into history in that time, that's what it was. You had all these different units, man, trying to get to Baghdad, trying to, you know, take that
Make it a stronghold.
that capital. So we roll on through, and you know, it was different because I think that first 36 hours or so was in sleep, man. You know, it's just, you're just rolling. And yeah, you're encountering some things along the way, some small little skirmishes here and there.
Yeah.
Our first objective was to hit the Ramallah oil fields, which was some of the biggest oil fields in southern Iraq. It might have been the actual biggest oil fields in southern Iraq. So we were there to secure those. And so we got those locked down. And then when we got those secured, then the British Royal Marines, they come in and relieved us in place. And we took off towards Baghdad. And, you know, it just kind of surreal then, you know, what's going on.
And I'd say adrenaline probably takes a fella a long way, but I don't know about 36 hours worth. I'd say probably around that 30 hour mark, everybody's probably getting pretty tired.
Yeah, you're tired, man. You know,
I'm sure.
but you're there.
Yeah.
You know, you just try to make the best of it. And we get to Baghdad and secure Baghdad. And, of course, we had some little firefights, things like that along the way, you know, getting there. First time I'd ever been shot at, you know, going up through there. So that was good and bad, you know, because you go into that, you don't know how you're going to react.
Right.
You know, you never had that happen before, you know. And
Yeah.
I think that's on a lot of people's mind, man. Like, am I going to respond the way
Right.
that I should? You
Right.
know, is my training actually going to kick
Probably
in?
good to get that monkey off your back. you
Yeah,
know.
so then when it finally happens, you're like, okay, man, like this is what we trained for, and you know we're good to go. And I kind of relate it to, you know, a sport,
Yeah.
like, you know, football. If you take football for example, and you practice all summer, you know, 2 days, whatever, you never get to play on Friday night.
Right.
You know, so we'd practice for this, and this was our game.
Yeah.
You know.
I feel like a poor comparison that I would probably compare it to, like if just thinking out loud, would be like a young kid playing baseball. They practice baseball, but they're worried about getting hit by the ball, you know, and then they finally get hit by the ball, similar to being shot at, and then they're like, oh, okay, you know, like
It's all good.
I can deal with this. You know?
Well, it is life or death. That is the
Right,
only bad thing, and unfortunately, you know, guys get hurt, and even you know lose their lives.
Yeah.
That's the bad part of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not pretty,
No.
and it's not anything. I don't think anybody brags about it.
Yeah.
It's just it is what it is. And
Right.
but you know, it would be hard for me to tell you who I am leading up into law enforcement. You know, without hitting a little bit on those things and.
Well, that's a part of you.
And what drove me kind of when I decided to get into law enforcement, you know, what kind of helped drive me to that point. And so, you know, there's some very, very good experiences there
Yeah.
as far as growing up, man. Like figuring out who you are. And nobody really knows until you're put to the test,
Yeah.
you know, what you're actually made of. And your mind doesn't really know what your body can do, and vice versa. So you learn how to build off of that, you know, as a person. And so, you know, I didn't talk to my family for a couple months. You know, you couldn't stop to take a shower. You know,
Right.
you didn't get to order pizza. You know, all the things that you take for granted here.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, that
it
makes
all
sense.
comes into perspective in those type of situations.
I think if people really slow down and think about what all a soldier or an individual that's overseas in a combat situation, what they really endure, if they really, I mean, people read articles, but like if you really stop and think about it for just a few minutes, you know, like not only the physical struggles, staying awake, being tired, being dirty, whatever you want to say, but then also on the mental side of it, you're thousands of miles away from home. You're not around your family. You don't talk to your family. That's a lot of weight for one or any guys to carry. I feel like, and I don't think personally. I think war has gotten to be such a thing, especially over the last 20 years. It's gotten to be common in mainstream media. I don't think people actually really legitimately take the time to stop and actually think about or try to put themselves in. Not that I ever could, but try to put the sacrifices that are made. You know, and that's. A lot of people, there's a lot of generic stuff going around, and I'm sure you've heard it too, like, oh, appreciate your service. But if you really do stop and think about it, you do appreciate their service. If you don't, there's something wrong, you know, like, because that's a lot for one fella to carry.
Yeah, if you don't, you can unsubscribe.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, most guys don't. You know, they don't really want that.
Right.
You know, that's kind of what they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, man. I was lucky in a way. Some people would say that sounds crazy, but I was lucky in a way because it taught me so much, and I
Right.
learned so much from it.
Yeah.
The bad thing is, you know, I had buddies that got killed. I had buddies that got hurt.
Right.
So, you know, I wish that didn't happen. Right.
Absolutely. Sure.
But it helped make me who I was, and a lot of the things that I do now at the sheriff's office, I draw from things that happened 20 years ago.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
the way I do things sometimes right, wrong, or indifferent. You know, I draw those from experiences, and so, you know, we went through that. Had some pretty good battles. You know, you really grow up then.
Sure.
And came back in September. Didn't really, that was a bad thing about being over there the first time, man. Nobody knew when we was coming home,
Yeah.
you know. And so we came back in around September and around Chase's birthday, which was good. And then September of the next year, I deployed again. And that time I deployed to Ramadi.
So your
Iraq.
first deployment, you were how long was your first deployment?
Well, we got there in February, so we come back in September. Was that 7-8 months?
About 7 months.
Yeah, about 7 months.
Yeah.
So that's kind of standard.
What was your time like between when you got home from that first deployment to you deployed again?
Well, you start training again. I mean, you come home, you get a little break.
It's no vacation.
No, you get a little break. You know, you come home for a few weeks, and then you're back at it.
Right.
You know, you're back doing another spin up, and then you're figuring out where you're next.
How was that mentally? You know, because I'm sure there was a lot more unknown for that first time leading up, and you're training, but you don't really know what was the difference between before that first deployment, before the second one, mentally, just the getting prepared.
So, I think for me on a personal level, I was more mature. I was a better Marine, and you know, I was ready to do what needed to be done at that point. Like I kind of been there, done that.
Yeah.
You know, not that I had arrived. I still had a long way to go, but I had more confidence. Right. I'm like, okay, I can do this job. You
Right.
know, so, you know, I was a younger Marine then, and then so coming up on the second deployment, then, you know, we start training, we start spinning up for the second deployment. Well, at that point, you know, as younger Marines, we're starting to have to transition into being the senior Marines. So now we're having to take over the squads. We're having to be the team leaders, you know, for this
Had
next
your
deployment.
role or rank changed in between
Yeah,
there?
yeah. I mean, I picked up a little rank, but my second deployment, you know, leading up to my second deployment, I became a team leader. So now I have my own team, you know, that I'm responsible for, which worked out good, you know, because all us younger Marines kind of transitioned into that senior Marine role.
When you talk about the team leader, I'm assuming you're talking about like your firing squad or something.
Yeah, fire team. So
just define that real quick.
So your squad, you know, you got a 12-man squad or 13. You got 3 fire teams of 4 guys, and then a squad leader. So we were all buddies, right? So squad leader was really still a good friend of mine. Still talk to him. A lot of the team leaders were all still tight. You know, we still have text message thread from, you know, guys of 20 years ago. You know, that we still talk to.
Yeah.
On occasion. And so, you know, that was kind of cool. You know, we started out young and kind of grew together.
Yeah.
And then the second deployment come up. Like I said, now we're all squad leaders, team leaders, you know, those type things. Section leaders, you know, for the machine gun guys and mortar guys. And then the second deployment it was different. You know, it was, so when you start training, like at some point you're going to figure out where you're going. So we know we're going to Ramadi. And you're getting kind of intel briefs coming back from the units that's there. Hey, this is what's going on. You know, this is what they're doing. This is how we're countering it. This is working. This ain't working. You know, that type thing. So a lot of your training's built around that. Like you're still hitting the basics. Like when you come off a deployment and you go training again, when you go back to the range and you start shooting again, you're starting from the basics again, you know, and then you're just building that back up. So when you go to do like what we call mount operations, military operations, urban terrain, you're starting from the basics. So like when you're going out into that city, you're starting basics and working up. So it's not like you get to a level and then you just climb, and you don't ever break the basics back down.
Right.
Like you always break the basics back down. And
Makes a lot of sense.
so like your first couple of months, from what I can remember, you know, training was that. Let's get the basics back, and then we'll kind of move from there and transition into what we think we're going to be seeing on the second deployment.
Yeah.
And so at that point, you know, you're a team leader, so you got a little bit of more to know, so to speak, you know. You got a little bit more control over how your team operates, you know, and that's you working with the squad leaders and then working with the platoon sergeants, platoon commanders, you know, and that commander's intent and what's expected out of this training. And then it comes time to deploy, man, like your boots hit the ground and it's go time, you know. And so we hit Ramadi in 2004, which was a very, very active area at the time. A lot of insurgency there. So, I mean, right off the rip, you know, we're in contact on a daily basis.
A little more intense this time. So.
Yeah, and it's all urban. you know, so it's all city. You got some parts of it that's maybe a little more, I guess you would say, traditional terrain. You know, you got some parts of the city that's maybe wooded fields, you know, things like that. But for the most part, it's built up. As far as population-wise goes, you know, I think it's somewhere around the size of Kansas City. And then you're broke down into certain AOs. We call them AOs, area operations. And this is kind of your AO, and that's where you run your ops in that part of the city. And then it can be anywhere from just running contact patrols, the security patrols, to hitting houses, you know, kicking in doors and snatching bad guys, and you know, whatever comes up.
Right.
So that one was a little more intense as far as the contact, you know, the engagements that you encounter. And, you know, unfortunately we lost more guys in that deployment, you know, than the first one. But anyway, so yeah, so you kind of got the best of both worlds in a sense. You know, the first time you got the desert and you got the open area and you got a little bit of built up area, and then you go to the second deployment and it's all pretty much door to door kicking in.
Completely different.
Yeah, it's just a whole different environment.
How long was that deployment?
That was about 7 months too.
So about the same. Is
Yeah.
that typical for?
Yeah, that's about 6 to 7 months is on average. The problem the biggest problem we faced then was the IEDs. You know, you get blowed up a lot, man. You know, they put a lot of stuff on the side of the roads to try to take you out, and you know, sometimes it felt like you were fighting ghosts.
Yeah.
You know, you see the muzzle flash, you hear the rounds cracking. You know, you don't see the person.
Yeah.
But sometimes you do. You know, but when you're in an urban area, it's just different.
Yeah.
And but you really learn that whole shoot, move, communicate piece of it really comes into effect in the urban environment just as much as it does out in your other terrain. But the training leading up to that was probably some of the better training, you know, that we had, and we were still probably a little behind where they are now.
Right.
You know, these Marines nowadays.
I know we've discussed it before when we talk about training. You know, how did you see the evolution of training? You know, from when you first deployment, you know, to before you got out. You know, I know there was a lot of change there. I don't want to say a lot. I don't know, but some of the tactics tend to change a little bit. And
well, it's just like law enforcement. You know, I mean, it's like I say all the time. There's two things that are constant in this world, and that's time and change, right? And you got to change with the times.
Right.
And so you're going to encounter different things, and you got to be able to adapt to that and change your tactics, your techniques, your procedures, and how you go about it. So, you know, you train a certain way, say for that 6 months, and then you get there and you realize, hey man, some of this stuff ain't working.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you're adjusting on the fly, you know, and like, okay, we got to figure this out. You know, you're losing too many dudes doing this,
Right.
you know, or whatever the case is, or, you know, we're getting hammered too much on these IEDs. Like, we got to figure out a different way of how we're going to combat this. And, you know, so, yeah, it's just a constant change and a constant adjustment. And then when you get back, like when I came back on my second deployment, I think there were 7 or 8 of us that they kicked out to these different places. And we just trained other units that were fixing to go based off the stuff that we had seen and kind of how we were countering that.
so you were actually a part of some of the change in tactics and instilling those. And
Yeah, I mean, I didn't write the book on
Right,
it, but yeah, I mean, and you have to do that. And I think if you didn't do that, then you're sending guys in blind.
Right.
You know, even though they're getting intel briefs back from these other units, like, you still need to be able to put those tactics and those procedures into place.
Right.
So you need to train on them.
Right.
That makes sense.
So, yeah, we spent some time just going around and just training on these other units and just saying, hey, this is what they're doing. This is how we countered it. This worked. This didn't work. That type thing. So I did that the last few months I was in, and then I came back and came back home and was a recruiter for 2 years over in Bowling Green. I recruited out of Bowling Green office, recruited Allen County, put a few guys in from here.
Yeah. So what? Around what time were you completely out of your military career? Well, I know you're still not out of your military career. You're still active in a
Right.
in a guard unit.
Yeah, so I got out in 08. Spent 6 years. That was all my active time. I got out. I was out for about 8 months, and I still had the itch, you know.
Right.
And I didn't really want to go back at that point active. I don't know. It's weird. I did, but I didn't.
Yeah.
You miss it, and so I had to decide, you know, how can I scratch this itch? You know, I've been away from my family for so long, and you know, not that I was just gone for years or nothing, but I mean it was just so hit and miss. You know, even if you're not training, I mean not deploying, when you're at home, you're training so much, you know, that you don't have a lot of time at home either. So I'm like, you know, maybe this part-time guard gig would probably work better for me.
Yeah, and unfortunately, time don't stand still. You know, it moves quick, especially when you got a little one. And
Right.
At that time, you had a little fella who's now a big fella.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in the stands with us today.
So
He's over working on his cheerleading move.
yeah, he went from football to cheerleading.
Strange guy, good guy, just strange.
He might be a better cheerleader than football.
Yeah, he got the legs for it.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's kind of when my law enforcement career, just a couple years after that, kind of spun up. Man, if I'm going to be transparent, I struggled a little bit
Right.
when I got out. It was a little hard because, man, you're just used to go. You're used to this purpose, and you know, like I said, you miss it, and it's like, what's my purpose now? You know.
Feel like you had a void there.
Yeah, it's like, what do I do now, you know? And you're operating in this, you know, high-functioning organization for so long and doing the things, man, and now you come home and you're like, man, I ain't got that no more, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't have that team. I don't have that purpose, you know, and you start to lose a little bit of your drive, and then, you know, you kind of get down on yourself a little bit. And so I thought, well, you know, maybe if I jump back in there, you know, and did the guard thing, you know, that would help. And so I did, and that's been a good career, you know.
How long have you done the guard thing now? You're
Well, I mean, total time between my active and that, I'm hitting 22 years right now. So
it's a long time.
Long time.
I'm gonna retire in August.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see full string. I think I've heard that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah, I think we both heard that before.
Yeah, I think it's a done deal.
I
this
thought that
time.
was happening last August.
Yeah, I
You
did
know.
too, man. They
Mama's going to put her foot down.
Yeah, they had a unit. We got a unit that's going out the door. They're fixing to deploy, and they pulled my chain a little bit to get me to stay, help train these guys and get them out the door.
Well, good on you. Good on you. I'm sure those guys appreciate that.
Yeah,
So-
that ain't something you'll ever regret, I'm sure.
So you got out, spent 2 years recruiting, got out, joined the guard, and you know, I know what you did from there, but let's start filling the gap.
So I went in, so real quick, just so I can clear it up. So like what I did in the guard was air guard, and my job there is combat arms and training. So that's all I do. I teach on the range. I teach combat tactics and shooting.
Play with guns. That's
Yeah,
all you
pretty
do.
much. Yeah, pretty much, and just
Yeah, I mean,
and that's pretty much all I've done since I've been there. Really, like, so it's been a pretty good gig for me, man.
Yeah.
I'm on the range all the time. I'm teaching guys, you know, to shoot, teaching guys tactics, you know, that type thing. So, which is good because a lot of those guys don't get some of that experience and that
Yeah.
training that I've, you know, have been fortunate enough to be involved in to bring that to them.
Right.
Of course, tactics have changed over years, you know, but a lot of it's still basic stuff, you know,
Right.
that you need to learn. So I've been able to do that. So that's been a good thing. They've been good to me, and there was no complaints, and you know, I've had a good time doing it. But one of the young men was asking me the other day, well, it's been a couple months ago. He said, "When did you go to "Did you go to Iraq the first time?" And I told him. He said, "I wasn't even born
Oh,
yet."
man,
I said,
that's
"Man,"
crazy.
I said, "Okay."
How is it like working with?
I said, "All right, it's time for me to go."
Now
Been here long enough.
you're working
Yeah.
with young men who are probably younger than your own kid now.
yeah,
That's got to make you feel old.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, man, it's time to go.
Do something else.
You're getting old now.
Yeah. And I ain't even the oldest guy there, but yeah, so it worked out pretty good. I have no complaints, man, as far as that goes. It's been good to me.
Well, let's jump into where we're at now, or kind of your next career.
So it's kind of odd. Like, I never thought about being a cop, man.
Me either.
Like, I really didn't. Like,
Me either.
of course, y'all know, my brother was already.
Yeah.
When my brother started work here, I was still in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And I thought he was crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, that's coming from a guy that's used to getting shot at and
Yeah.
blowed up, and I think
Yeah.
he's crazy
Yeah.
for being a cop. But I was like, man, why you want to do that? And I just didn't know nothing about it.
Yeah.
So anyway, make a long story short, man, I'm looking for that purpose. I'm looking for that team.
Scratch that itch.
Yeah, I'm looking for something that I feel like can fulfill that void a little bit. Because, even though I jumped in the Guard, man, even that wasn't the same. It's not, it's not what I was used to. And so I was on the internet one day, man, looking for jobs, and I stumbled across. I was actually looking at for a VA job at Western, and that was to help guys that was transitioning out of the military, wanting to go to college.
Yeah.
And you're kind of like the liaison with them in the school for helping them get their VA benefits, to get started in school. Because somebody had told me about it. So I got on there looking for it, and it had already closed. But right underneath it was a police officer job. And I'm like, I didn't even know they had cops over there, and, so I was like, well, they had their pay scale on there, and it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad.
Right.
And I'm like, and at the time, it's no knock to anybody, but it was more than what you're going to make around, what guys were making around here at the time. And I was like, maybe that'll work. And maybe that'll give me, maybe something I'm looking for, some of that purpose. Because I was pretty close to going back overseas doing private contracting. And because that was a lot of money back then, private contracting was.
Yeah.
And that was kind of my next play, man. Like, if this didn't work out, I'm just going to go try to do the private thing. And, I had a couple buddies, and we were talking, and they actually went on and done it. And, did some time there, 2 or 3 years, as private contractors. So I thought, well, I'll try this first. If it don't shake out, then that's probably what I'm going to do. And, they hired me. And I was like, man, I can't believe they're hiring me. 'Cause I did not interview well, I didn't think.
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I remember leaving there thinking, man, if they hire me,
Well, I'm sure you probably have resume was probably decent. Going in after.
Yeah, well,
it's got to speak some
and
volumes.
that's a different law enforcement side, because like I said, I wasn't that versed in law enforcement.
Right.
I didn't know all the different agencies and what they did, and the difference in them, because I just never really looked into it.
Right.
And so I kind of started looking into it a little bit more throughout that process, but so I was like, well, I'm just gonna give this a go and see what happens. So. They hired me, thankful they did. They were good to me too. So I started out there, and even the whole time through the academy, the academy wasn't bad for me, obviously.
Right,
It was pretty easy.
Yeah.
But I still wasn't convinced I wanted to be a cop.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I hope I don't go through this whole thing for 6 months
Right.
and then realize, hey, this ain't what I want to do,
Yeah.
And so, I went through it. I did the best I could do. I wasn't going through the motions.
Yeah.
Right.
But, while I was there, I was committed to it.
Right.
And so I got out, man, and once I got out of the academy and got to doing the job, I guess I kind of fell in love with the job a little bit.
Yeah. Kind of grows on you.
Yeah, after about a year. And then, a few years into it, like I said, that's just a different type of policing. And so that's when I started realizing that there was a little bit different and maybe more type of policing that maybe would fit me a little better.
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
I was still pretty young. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
I was still in good shape. You know, and ready to go.
Wanted to be active.
Yeah, I wanted to be active, was ready to go, and I was like, okay, man, like this has been good. I've learned a lot, but hey, I need something, you know, that's going to get me out and get after it a little more,
Yeah.
and actually get after bad guys,
Right.
you know, that type thing.
Yep.
And so the old sheriff Cook, he's called me one day and was like, hey, you know, I talked to my brother about it. He said there was probably an opening coming up. He called and he said, hey, you be interested to come talk to me about coming to work here? I was like, yeah, I'll come talk to you. So went up there and we talked, and he offered me a job, and I took it.
End of the story.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Here we are now.
And so that's how I ended up here at the Allen County Sheriff's Office. And then, man, I didn't know nothing hardly when I got here. Like 4 years as a cop, like I know how to write a report, you know, but the calls that you see here, that you go on here, was so much different. And, you know, other than that time that I'd spent in the military, you know, I'd lived here my whole life.
Right.
And I can remember that first couple of weeks working here, man, like I couldn't believe everything that went on.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I've been living in a bubble.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like, well, I told Christy, she was like, how is it? I said, you've been living in a bubble. I've been living in a bubble. Like, there's more going on here than what you realize, you know?
It blew my mind too.
Yeah.
It really did.
It's
I'm
like-
the same way.
Some of the calls I went to, I was like, this is really happening?
Some of these places you don't
Yeah.
even know exist.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, man, I thought I knew Allen County.
Me
like,
too.
You know, I didn't know Allen County,
Right,
you know?
right.
And that's not, when I say that, like, I mean,
no, it's everywhere.
I didn't know the areas.
Yeah.
You know, like I didn't know some of these areas was even in Allen
Right,
County,
yeah.
you know, and you get out into Acresville and some of that area out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Like-
it's no man's land.
Yeah, I didn't spend much
Better
time.
have a road map.
Yeah, I didn't
'cause
spend
your
much time
GPS
out
probably
there.
ain't gonna work.
Yep.
So yeah, it was a different environment, you know, and going to calls by yourself,
Yep.
you know, that was different. And unfortunately, that's just the way we have to handle it sometimes, you know.
Yep.
Well, if we only got 2 road deputies out and there's 2 different calls, like there ain't no partnering up. Like you go to a call, he goes to a call, you know, and you better learn to handle those calls and
Right.
and be able to take care of yourself if it comes down to it. So that was a little different. Took some adjustment, but like everything else, man, you know, I just got used to it.
So here we are now. We've advanced down the road. I know you've had some leadership positions. You went from road deputy to a sergeant, you know, and have moved up in more of an administrative job. But can you talk just a little bit about your role, maybe in leadership at the department and where you're at now?
Yeah, so I would just work the road, you know, for a few years like everybody else. You know, I worked second, worked third, and you know, just bouncing calls and chasing tail lights and you know that type thing. Had some work with some good guys, you know, love it, and then was pretty young at the time.
Yep.
When I first got here, they were still in the academy, and so we were working a lot of hours, man. Me and Chris Barton worked a lot. The first, you know, couple years I was here, and me and him we had a good time, you know, out working and doing the job. And then, I just I rolled into that sergeant position on second shift, and held that position for a while. And you know, at the time we were still a fairly small department.
Right.
We still are,
Right.
but even smaller.
Yeah. It was even
You know,
quite a bit
so
smaller.
most of the time it was just me and one other deputy.
Yep.
You know that.
Yeah, I think me and you manned second for a while. I
Yeah.
recall
Yeah.
a whole lot of time with somebody else on it.
No.
So yeah, I in that time frame, I was working third, working second, going to college, full time,
Yep.
and ended up graduating college a few years, you know, a couple years after I got here. So that was a little different, you know,
Right.
trying to work full time, third
Yeah.
shift, go to school. But got that knocked out, and then that was more on a personal side, and then From there, I just, I don't know, man. I just try to get better at the job. And I seen some things that I felt like we could do that would maybe move the department in a good direction. Not that it was in a bad spot.
No, it's, speaking from my standpoint, and been here long enough to see some change, and we've come a long ways. We've had some ups and downs, as far as tough times with manpower and stuff and pay and just your normal stuff that all departments go through. But I feel like we've had a great core group, and I feel like that core right now continues to grow, and that is a testament to your work, and appreciate that. But we had this core group, we thought, and that core group kind of keeps growing and growing, and that's the idea, I guess. Before long, hopefully we consider everybody, that core base, and that's a pretty strong department you got there when everybody's in the mix and pulling the same way.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the one. I feel like that's where we're unique at. And I think I've told you guys before, this is the closest that I've had, throughout my career in military and law enforcement. This is the closest to what I had back in the day, back when I was in the Marine Corps. As far as that core group of guys that share the same common goal, that want to be successful, that want to do the job, that care about the job, care about what they're doing. We don't always do everything perfect, right? Like, we don't. We're human. We make mistakes. But I can promise you, if that deputy that we have at the Allen County Sheriff's Office right now makes a mistake, there's nothing you're going to say to that guy. There's nothing you're going to do that's going to change that guy's mind, because he's already beating himself up. Because he cares enough about what he's doing, and he cares enough about the job that he's going to go home and he's going to think about that. And he's going to beat himself up. He's going to look in the mirror and he's going to say, "Hey, how are you going to get better?" And how many times have these young guys come to us and say, "Hey, I messed up. I messed up. Like, what do I, nothing bad. Not go to jail, mess up, but hey, I probably didn't handle this call the right way, or, maybe I didn't handle this traffic stop the right way. And what would you have done, or how could I have done that better?" Like, you don't get that everywhere you go. You know what I mean?
No, and the other thing too is, if for some reason you catch something that they don't, you bring it up. It's not a hissy fit or pouting and carrying on. Most of those guys are like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. Well, what about this?" And they're liable to ask you about something else. There's not a lot. If there is any constructive criticism, it's received pretty well. You don't have a bunch of babies, for lack of terminology. They all handle it pretty good.
Well, if I can speak just on my side, going back to the leadership, when I was fortunate enough, to get in this position that I'm in now, and started back when Cook was here, he allowed me to make some changes and to do some things that I felt like needed to happen to grow us, to move us in a different direction. And, not to sound arrogant by no means, but I'm used to coming from very high functioning organizations. And when you're in the military, like, that's kind of what's expected. You know what I mean? Like, you need to be very efficient and proficient at what you do. And to do that, you need personnel. You need money, and you need time, and you need assets, right? So at that point, once you get those things lined up, it's my job to help manage those, to make sure that we're expanding and that we're getting better at what we do, whether it's through training, making sure we got, the right equipment, those type things. So he was pretty good at allowing me to make some changes to move us forward and working with me, and I don't always have the right answers, right? I might bounce something off of you. I might bounce something off of you. And, hey, what do y'all think about this? And y'all may tell me, no, it don't sound like a good idea, And I'm going to process that, And more times than not, I'm hey, you're probably right. And, but then there's some things that I look at and I'm like, no, this is kind of the way it needs to go. And I've been wrong, right? Like I said, we make mistakes. But the focus for me, the focus for me is to help make this, working with Sheriff Ford, who I feel like's done an excellent job since he's been here. And, you know, it started with Cook and then it came with him, to work with him. And I want this to be the best sheriff's office around. Like, not for me. Like, I could care less if my name, and I'm sure, you know, I can't speak for anybody else, but I think a lot of other people feel that same way.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I just want what's best for the people here and for the community.
Yeah.
And we just had that conversation this morning, like talking when nobody else was around and it was just us. But I'll throw it out there, like, these guys realize, y'all realize, the guys that we have that, you know, you're a sergeant, you're a lieutenant, and those guys that you have underneath you, they actually want to make this community better.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's not cliche to them.
Right.
It's no, hey, I want to get out here and get after it.
Right.
You know, I want to solve cases. I want to put bad guys in jail. I want you and your family to feel safe here.
Yeah.
And, you know, so that's our objective. Are we going to completely eradicate crime? No. You know, are we going to take a good shot at it? Yeah.
Oh,
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely.
we're going to throw it. We're going to throw everything we got at it.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to try.
Yeah.
And like I said, are we going to make some mistakes along the way? Sure. Are we going to grow from those? Absolutely. Are we going to get better from them? Sure.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, you know, that's my job to help drive that.
Right.
Based off of what the sheriff sends down to me, and then I send that throughout the ranks.
Right.
You know, and hey, this is the expectation. And I think the guys get the expectation.
Right.
And we've had a pretty good backing so far with the county government
Absolutely.
as far as giving us, you know, and working with us and trying to give us the things that we need and, you know, trying to help us out in that aspect of it.
Yeah, we're fortunate.
So we're pretty fortunate to be a small county to have that.
Yeah, I agree.
So I know some of the things. One of the important things to you, you know, I'm sure all the guys have heard a little about it, is you really stress fitness and stuff. And we're lucky to have a department where we've got several guys who are on that same page. But just talk a little bit before we run out of time about, you know, your why behind fitness and why you think it's so important to just everyday life and more particularly our job.
Yeah, so we just killed a workout a minute ago.
That's right. We might start a new thing here before you beware. If we ask you on the podcast, you might have to come in the gym here and get a workout in.
Yeah.
Probably won't be able to contribute.
So we just killed a pretty good workout in here in the Adams House of Pain. Where's you at, Love?
Watching boys.
That's a good excuse.
That's a good
He was
excuse
still at
right
work.
there.
Right,
Good
yeah,
excuse.
me and Danny and his son Chase, we got to kill a workout in here before we got this going. But I know
yeah,
it's important to you.
Yeah, it's very big to me. As you know, I ain't old, but I ain't young anymore either. You know, and I gotta try to stay in the best shape I can.
Right.
I still like to get out there and get after it with you guys sometimes. You know,
Yeah.
even though my roles changed a little bit. I think y'all know if something goes down, I'm gonna be there. And I don't want to let you down.
Right.
Right. If you're chasing a guy, if you catch him, I'm gonna be there.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna catch him.
Yeah.
You know, one of the two, unless it's love it. You know, me and him chased a few guys, and
Yeah.
he's always a step above me when I'm right there. You
Yeah.
know, but he's like a deer. So
Yeah.
anyway,
I ain't never been by myself.
right. So, man, I just want to be able to, you know, the reason why I stress it so much is I've seen how important it is, you know, in the military. And when you find yourself in a combat situation and just a fight on the side of the road off a traffic stop that went bad, you know, and that guy decides, I'm not going in cuffs
Yep.
and you're not taking me to jail.
Yep.
And I want you to be able to sustain that, right? Like, I want you to be able to handle yourself, and I want you to be able to put that guy in cuffs with the least amount of force
Yep.
that it takes to do it, right?
Yep.
Well, where are you going to get that from? Well, you got to be physically fit, man, because if you're not only might that guy might wipe you out there, you know, but it may be a minute before one of us get there.
Right.
Right. I need you to be able to sustain until I can get there to help you,
Right.
or until Travis can get there to help you, or until Josh Jones can get there to help you, whoever,
Yeah.
right? And that's for you, right? That's for you and your family,
Right.
right? I don't want you hurt on the
Yeah.
side of the road. And if you go back and, into the psychological aspect of it or the physical aspect of it, you get in that moment, in that combat engagement, you get that flight or fight sense that kicks in, and then there's certain skills that start to diminish a little bit, fine motor skills, things of that nature, tunnel vision, all those different things come into play. So the better shape you're in, the more you can combat that
Right.
and actually relax and be able to assess what's going on here and make a good decision, right? So it's proven that the more physically fit you are, the sharper your mind is. So you don't have to be a marathon runner. You don't have to be Mr. Olympia. You don't have to win the CrossFit Games. But you have to be in good enough shape that I can sustain what I need to sustain in that moment, for that amount of time. And if you look at what we have to do as law enforcement, we have to show restraint, right? I don't want to have to go to that higher use of force if I don't need to. If I can be in good enough shape just to control this guy and to make him maybe do what I need him to do, which is just to get him in a pair of handcuffs, right? Or to be able to get to one of my tools that I might have to use, what would be my taser or my spray or whatever. But for the most part, that's it, man. Like, I want you to be able to function in an environment where your stress level goes up because your heart rate's going to go up, your blood pressure is going to go up. All those different things are going to happen in that time. And I want you to be able to mitigate that. And you do that through physical fitness, putting yourself through that stress, putting your body through that stress, and also strength, It's anybody that knows me knows I'm not a big guy, right?
Nobody.
Yeah.
Luckily, nobody gives you a hard time about it.
Well, no. No. But,
Just trying.
but
I told Lovett, dang, he's got a height issue, and it's okay. Everybody knows. But I wanted to be a good host here, but I was gonna have you a booster seat.
yeah.
Yeah.
I wish you would have.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways,
You know what happens when you come.
You get kicked in the shin or something. Yeah.
But
that's
no,
body
but
rock.
my point to that is, so even for me, so it's even more important for me, right? Because
You got to be able to do the job.
man, I gotta be able to.
Yeah,
do
and
that.
And I bet if you went down that line and lined up everybody in our department and you asked them why it's important for them to be in shape and why it's important for them to do their job successfully, we've got the kind of guys that are not going to say, so I can go home to my family. You know what they're going to say.
Oh, it's on my butt. So the guy I'm working with.
So
can go.
the guy I'm working with, so I can take care of him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's the thing. Like, I want to be able to help you, and that's kind of what I was saying. Like, if you're in a fight or if you're chasing a guy or whatever, like, I don't want you to chase that guy 200 yards, and then when you get him caught, if you get him caught,
Can't
you
do
end up
nothing.
having to fight him.
Yeah.
He's still got gas in the tank. You don't have gas in the tank, and I'm still 200 yards back here, and I can't get to you.
Yeah,
right?
that could be a life or death situation. I'll tell you something, and anybody that's, even if they wrestled as kids or played sports, or you just put yourself in a situation where you're exhausted, like legitimately exhausted, whether you roll, do BJJ, whatever, but at some point you felt exhausted, and then put yourself in a spot where you got to try to keep a guy from grabbing your gun, or you got to try to keep a guy from hurting somebody else, and to me, what always kept me up at night, and I'm not in the same shape I was 10 years ago, I'd be lying, but I can still get after it. To me, what always kept me up at night, and I've told my wife this a bunch of times, to me, there's no worse of a feeling that I could put myself in than being exhausted on the side of the road somewhere with a dude that didn't want to go, and there wasn't nothing I could do about it. I was just completely out of gas. And if you've ever been completely out of gas in a physical altercation or anything, it's helpless.
Oh, yeah.
That's a terrible feeling.
I can tell you where my mind goes in this job, and just kind of to give a little insight into for the people to what we go through and what we think. If I'm going through a hard workout here in the gym and it's towards the end of it and I'm gassed and I want to quit or whatever, or I just want to get through it, I want to think what if Danny Wilson's hurt? Am I just gonna
Yeah, are you gonna
get
lay
him there
down?
as slow as I
Yeah.
can, or just lay down? And
Yeah.
or if Brandon Lovett or one of our other guys is hurting and I've got to get to him, and I'm already gassed, am I just gonna ease to him? So. It means a lot to me to be in shape to take care of our guys, and and I think you do a good job
I do
of
too.
just kind of promoting that and keeping that in the back of our guys' minds.
Well, if I'm going to promote that to you guys, then I have to myself.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I have to try to do it, the best that I
Right.
can do it. And it's not just you guys, okay? But we take oath to protect people.
Yeah, we owe that to we
And-
owe that to everybody else.
If somebody calls me or you and needs you, right? And I'm not just talking about one of the deputies. I'm talking about a citizen.
Yep.
And it's what we would consider a hot call, right? We've all been on them. And what happens, man, on the way? Your heart rate goes up.
Right.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
this is a serious
yeah.
call,
Yeah.
right? This may go south really fast, and somebody's there depending on you because they called 911 for a reason, right? They need you there.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to get there, right?
Yeah.
And you can't function
Yeah.
because you're so bad out of shape that just that little bit of stress from just knowing what the call is has shot your heart rate up,
Yeah.
and all
and you
that.
become a liability to the guys.
And you become a liability. And then on top of that, you get there, and like I said, going back to making good decisions, like, I can't make a good decision right now,
Right.
And the things that we have to do a lot of times are split second. You're on the side of the road.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to make split second decisions. And like you said, that physical fitness level drives a lot of that, and us being able to make those decisions and
Yeah.
being able to execute them.
And it builds confidence too. If you're in good shape and you're confident about yourself, everybody's seen it on the news. Cops that I'm not Monday morning quarterbacking, but cops that made a questionable decision, whether it be using lethal force or physical force or whatever you want to say, that might have been mitigated a little bit had their confidence been a little higher, and had they had a second to, or been in a mind or headspace where they could kind of be like, I'm all right. I don't have to do
Ate
something.
one less donut
Yeah.
or one
Yeah.
less trip through a drive-through.
Yeah, I don't have to do something rash to get out of this. Like, I'm okay,
Yeah,
And that's
and like I said, I don't expect you to be, I don't expect to be, and I don't expect people to be go out here and win the CrossFit Games tomorrow. It ain't that tight, but I just expect you to be able to good enough shape, man, you can function because,
yeah,
like I said, to your family. Like
Yeah.
you said earlier, like you told your wife that you don't want to be on the side of the road, not be on. Well, they don't either.
No.
They don't
Yeah.
want you on the side of the road,
Yeah.
not being able to handle yourself either.
Well, yeah, just to switch gears a little bit, I put myself in a spot. Just say we're in Panama City Beach on vacation. Something goes down, and I'm not the one that's there handling that, and I call somebody expecting them to handle it, and they get out of the car, and the last thing I want to do is go, oh crap, like that's a waste.
Well, yeah, that just goes to, I wish everybody in life, as a family man, a dad, a husband, a
Yeah.
wife, whatever, if you would just have the mindset that no one's coming to help me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You may second guess how you treat your body or what kind of shape you're in, because at the end of the day, there may not be anyone else coming that can help you. So
yeah,
Yeah, and I'm
do
not.
what you can to take care of yourself and your others.
yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm this guy that just eats green leaves and grilled chicken all the time.
I do. Yeah, but I do.
it ain't,
I do.
it ain't that type thing. But going back to what you were saying earlier, like that's kind of my thing is, which I worked out this afternoon with you, kind of a little off kilter for me. But usually, I get up in the mornings and that's
Yeah.
kind of what I do. And the reason being is, man, I want to be ready for that day.
Yeah.
And like, there's just this mechanism in my brain that says if I don't get up and do that, then I'm not ready for the day and what's going to come, what might come.
Throws you off.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just throws me off. And so I hope as I get older and as age comes that I don't lose that, right? I don't
Yeah.
lose that edge because I feel like that helps keep me going. And so that's why I push it, man. That's why when I say I push it, like I just throw it out there,
Yeah.
for guys to hear. And
Yeah, you're not beating nobody with a stick.
no, and I'm not looking down on them.
Yeah.
It's a very important, and
Yeah,
I want them to grasp it,
Mm-hmm.
how important it is. And so if I can just keep hitting on that, everybody will catch on to it.
yeah,
And even people that, maybe ain't cops,
yeah.
but
Oh, absolutely.
that's on the outside, that that don't understand the importance of it, and it's health. You
Yeah.
know, just health in general.
In
you know.
general, yeah.
And I don't always have the healthiest habits,
No, I mean,
you know. But
me either.
so I'm not trying to say that. But for us, I feel like it's very, very important for what we do. In our
Yeah, I
job.
couldn't agree more.
Well, we'll move on before we wrap this up. Last but certainly not least, probably something we should mention in the forefront. But I don't mean to put you on the spot, and I don't mind talking a little bit. But how does your faith play part in your everyday life in this job?
Well, I mean,
You ain't
So-
putting him on the spot.
no.
I didn't figure I would.
And I
do
could,
that.
you put him on the
honestly, I
spot.
could answer it in so many different ways, and I don't want to. I don't know that there's a cookie cutter answer for me, but obviously, my relationship with God through my faith in Jesus Christ is probably one of the most important things now. I'll say that with, am I a perfect person? No. You know, I don't walk at the foot of the cross. I don't do everything every day that maybe I should do. But
None of us do.
the one thing that I try to focus on every day is I try to depend on God to help get me through that day. And so, whether that's reading His Word, whether that's just the time that I spend in prayer with Him, and that's just a personal relationship that I have with Him. And I think that's very important for people to understand that, God made you an individual,
Yep.
and He gives you an opportunity to have a relationship with Him, and it's your and His relationship.
Yeah.
It's not mine, you're in His relationship. It's your and His relationship.
Yeah.
And so I can't build a relationship with Travis Adams through Brandon Lovett. Like, yeah, we can have an acquaintance, and I can understand Travis through some of the things of Lovett. But if I really want to have an in-depth or a good relationship with Travis, then I have to spend time with Travis.
Right. Yeah.
So I have to spend time talking to Travis and understanding Travis. And, I don't completely understand God. No, don't want to act like that. But
Right.
when I read His Word, then I get a little bit better understanding of God. And, I'll be honest, back years ago, back when I was in the Marine Corps, and some of the situations I was in, it didn't
Yeah.
look good,
Right.
and there's oftentimes I would just draw on God to give me strength and leadership and courage to make it through because, I was trained. Yeah, I had a gun. I had all these things, but at
Right.
the end of the day, man, He's bigger than all that,
Oh, yeah.
right? So, there's nothing too big for Him. So I would always find myself, hey God, give me the leadership that I need. Give me the courage that I need. Give me the strength that I need.
Yeah.
And I still do that today. And because here's the thing about this job, man, you really don't know.
No.
And it's not normal. It's not normal for you to go to work and have to wear a vest and pack a gun for most people, right? And you wear that vest and you pack that gun because bad things can happen,
Yeah.
right? And we've already experienced that.
Yeah.
October, we
Yeah.
had a pretty critical incident. We had an officer-involved shooting with a guy that was pretty intent, on harming us.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know what else his intentions were. But my point is, you put yourself in those situations, and so you don't control everything.
Right.
No.
And so I find myself having to lean more on Him to.
Well, I know when we walked out of that situation, immediately, there's definitely there's a higher power working there today because
Yeah.
it was a hairy situation and
Yeah.
some things out of our control. But some of those things that we experienced definitely, for me, have made me lean on my faith a little bit more and stuff. And I know, just throw this out there, that a testament to our guys again, the type of people we have. I've been inspired by you and several of our other guys, to strengthen my faith and my walk with Christ. And again, I'm always amazed, and I won't tell them because I don't want to blow our guys' heads up, and I won't do that to them, and they know that. But we have a lot of strong men, and who are strong leaders, and not just for people in the community, but for the men around us. And it's
Yeah.
that's been a big thing for me as well.
Well, I didn't always, my faith in Christ wasn't always at the forefront. So, and, some days I feel far, far away, but, and then some days it's hard to pray.
Yeah.
Some days it's hard to, have that warm and fuzzy about where you stand with God,
Yeah.
But I know that He's there, and I know that He exists, and I know that I do have a relationship with Him.
Yep.
But with that being said, I think my relationship has been built over mistakes that I've made,
Yeah.
I'd hate to see what kind of person I would be if I'd lived this perfect life and had never done anything wrong and never made mistakes, I'd probably be more of a mess than what I would have been if I had made mistakes and learned from them.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's really what it comes down to,
Yeah.
I mean,
100% agree.
and the fact that Christ forgives us for,
Yep.
things. And so, yeah, that's a huge part of my life as far as, having a relationship with Him. And, I've seen too many things, man. Like, I've seen evil.
Yeah.
I've seen it in ways that's unimaginable. And so I've seen the other side. And really, that's what darkness is. It's a lack of light.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
And so when you're in darkness and you're in the middle of evil, chaos, the only light you got is God, man.
Yeah.
And I've looked it in the eye.
Yeah.
And, and that's bouncing off of the things that I seen, years ago. And so I really, at that point, realized, like, okay, there really is a lot of evil in this world.
Yeah.
And there really is a lot of darkness. And where is the light?
Yeah.
Well, the light's Christ.
Yeah.
And we see it in this job, too, sometimes.
Yeah, for me, just in the last 10 years, I've always been a believer, but kind of echo a little bit the way Travis talked. You over time, you see a lot of bad stuff, and as a human, or at least in my case, I find myself sometimes after seeing those things or experiencing those things wondering, well, how in the world could somebody do that? Like, how do they? And sometimes there's an explanation, sometimes there's not. Sometimes it's just plain old evil, And so for me, over time, I've gotten a little more serious with my particular walk. But for me, it was, well, there's all this darkness, there is all this evil, so there's got to be light, which I knew that, from a child up. My parents have always, I've always known, but that just confirmed it for me, over the last 10 years. And my wife, my wife's a big push. You've been a big push. Me and you've had conversations sitting beside each other in a car at 2:30 in the morning. We've had them sticking rock on walls. Danny actually bought me a piece of literature. After a conversation we had, he didn't have to do that. So for me, over time, that was just a confirmation for me. Something I already knew, but that just really, that confirmed it. And then going back to last October, like what you guys were talking about, something like that, we won't get into all the details, but the odds wasn't great, how all that laid out, and there really ain't a good answer for that except God. Somebody higher powered than us was there. We aren't that smart, we aren't that good, so I just to echo you guys, I agree 100%. That's all it can be.
Well, and I think that, with you guys, I've seen, you guys grow in Christ. I know I don't go to church with you, right? But you don't, you build your relationship with Christ not just in church, right?
Yeah.
It's in your own time.
Yeah.
And I've seen you guys grow.
And I'm not perfect. I don't want to portray that.
Well, none of us are. And
I'm far from it.
No, you're not.
I'm far from it.
if we were, then Christ would have never had no reason to die on the cross,
Yeah.
right? So we don't get to take that away from Him,
Yeah.
right? That's something He done for us. That's not something we done,
Yeah.
right? So it's not our place to take that away from Him. He's given that to us, something that we couldn't give ourselves.
I've came a long way, but I got a long way to go.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll leave it at that. I got a long way to go.
Well, and it's real quick, the thing about it is, and I told you, like, going back to what I was saying earlier, like, it's really not that normal. So the things that's abnormal become normal to us,
Right.
and that's abnormal.
Yeah.
Right.
If that
Yeah.
makes any
Yeah,
sense.
that makes sense to me.
Yeah, me too.
So
Yeah.
you know the things that you deal with, that you go through, the experiences.
You
know,
could probably ask our wife and be like, "No, they're not normal."
Oh yeah, I guarantee.
from
Something
being a
wrong
cop,
with them.
Yeah, you know, from being a cop is this, you know, like I said.
I've never been normal. This is just amplified. You know, like,
But it becomes normal,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
at some point, you start to realize that, hey, man, I might need some help here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
And,
100%.
where am I going to draw that help from? Well, from a higher power, right, which is God,
Yep.
which is Christ. And kind of brings things back into perspective for
Right.
you a little
Absolutely.
bit.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap this up here. Appreciate you coming on, and it's been one of my favorite episodes.
Yeah, me too.
Hopefully, we can drag you back on here because I think we've got a lot more we can talk about. But
Oh yeah. Yeah, Danny's a open book, man. We bounce stuff off of him all the time. Has pretty good conversations. This is a drop in the bucket to what we've talked about over the years. We can sit and talk to Danny for hours, and we've done it.
oh yeah,
You know.
But we appreciate you having you. Anything else you want to throw out before we leave?
No, just appreciate you guys. I think this is a good thing that you guys got going on with this podcast. Like to see it keep going.
Well, we're not very good at it, but we're trying. We
No.
enjoy it when we get
No.
people on
Like
here.
doing a good
swinging a
job.
football bat.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I just think it's good. It's good for people to get to see maybe a side of.
It's a bad
us.
combination. We're probably not great public speakers.
Yeah.
I'm poor. We're all very poor at dealing with technology.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So you can imagine how this is going. But
Yeah.
it's probably a miracle if
It's-
you even see this.
It's kind of like a slow car wreck. Like you know it's going to be bad, and you can see it's bad,
But you can't stop
but
it.
you can't stop it.
Yeah.
It's going to crash. You know.
Well, that's life, man.
That's
you know,
right.
life's like running through the woods at night, man. You just try not to hit the big trees.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Those are the ones that's going to knock you down.
That's
It's hard
right.
to get back up from. You can make your way through the little ones, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
try not to hit the big trees.
Well,
So,
nonetheless, we appreciate you coming on board today. Enjoyed the workout before we got going, and
Yeah, I hate I missed it.
yeah. I love
Yeah,
it. I had to babysit. I don't know if you can call it babysit if you're on kids, but he was
No, it ain't
kid
babysitting.
watching.
Yeah, I was kid watching.
we hate you missed it.
Yeah.
He's babysitting.
We got after it. Appreciate Chase coming over. Thanks, Christy, for letting us have him for a little while. Thanks to Jason at Alpha Pet Boarding and On Point K9 Academy and the Sullivan Construction Group. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, fellas.